With anything else, welcome to another episode of the Tao of Talk. We're busy today. Second one today. Um, Today I'm met with Billy the Kid, and we've titled this Two Guys with Mental Illness. But I've clarified in the description a little bit that we're just talking about our experiences in various aspects of our life with mental illness, with, interactions with the psychology industry. Um, So let's go ahead and kick it off. Billy, do you want to introduce yourself? You can feel free to say as little or as much, and then we can, pop into the topic.
Okay, sure. Yeah, I'm Billy from Arkansas, and I've dealt with different forms of mental illness and intellectual disabilities at various aspects of my life. So that kind of tells you a little bit about me, anyway.
Yeah, I think we relate there. I was just telling you offline that I've had many experiences, with people I know and including my own self. I've dealt with probably in retrospect a lot of pretty serious issues that I took very lightly when I was young. Didn't really invest much into psychology, the psychic, and or the psychic, the psychology industry. Seeking professional help when I was having problems or anything of that nature. So I can definitely relate. I've got my own travels down those roads, but I'm familiar with some of yours as well. Where do you want to start? Like, do you want to yeah? Let's just go ahead and pick out like where you'd like to start talking about the particular subject. If not, maybe I can probe a little.
Well, I can start off with, first of all, I used to be a residential operations manager at a human development center. And so that's kind of where I got my experience with intellectual disabilities and dealing with the patients and working with them on their general everyday behaviors and duties like washing clothes or washing dishes or cleaning rooms or whatever, just stuff that general public would take for granted. Uh, but And then, I currently work for a psychiatric hospital where I deal with all forms of mental illness, um, dealing with the patients that are court ordered to be there. So there are criminal charges as well. So it's that experiences along with my son who has had a traumatic brain injury due to a car accident. So on a more personal level, so several aspects of my life that I've had to deal with it.
Mm. So we've talked a lot about like a bunch of different things in the background, but it seems to me like you and I have very diverse backgrounds. Like we probably started off in one place and ended up in places that we never expected we may end up. How did you gravitate to this industry? What is some of your prior history there? I think we talked about some of it in the past, but what drew you to that industry and makes you work there now?
Well, my biggest influence is my dad. Uh, he actually retired from the psychiatric hospital that I currently work at, and he was a psychiatric nurse, and so I have some experience with different discussions with him about it, um, and so I think that's what kind of moved me towards that, and I stepped away from there a couple of times and done other things, but for some reason I always seem to go back.
Hmm. Kind of like the family industry. I mean, not in that way, but your dad was involved in it, so it kind of led you to being involved in it. Is that what you mean?
Yes.
Mm. And then you've talked about with like on Don's channel, with Don, that guy, uh, about your son and various things going on there. Um, so how is that? How do I phrase this? How does that work into your current job? Like does it, is it? I don't even know how to phrase it, like how to ask this question. I'm terrible at this, by the way. I'm still learning. This is why it's called the Tao of Talk, because I'm trying to figure out the Buddhist flow of conversation. Sometimes my mind goes off on tangents, but how is your son and your current job related? That would be maybe a good way to phrase it.
But and they kind of go hand in hand actually. My experiences with my son, with his traumatic brain injury, a lot of the behaviors that he's had and a lot of the struggles that he's had to deal with developmentally, uh, has helped me with my career and working with the patients there as well. So what I learned from working with him helps me with the patients at my job, and then vice versa. My dealings and working with the patients helps me work with him to try to better their lives as much as I possibly can while I'm there.
Mm-mm. Is he involved in services at that facility too, or is this just kind of like maybe you can empathize with a lot of what goes on and gives you maybe a little bit more patience to handle it, a little more understanding? Is that kind of like, what's the relation there?
Yeah, he uh, doesn't have any dealings with that hospital. It's for older children, teenage years on up to adults, anywhere from 13 to, I think our oldest patient is right at about 72. So and there's a diverse group of people at the hospital as well. Adolescents all the way up to you have homeless people that have been there. You have doctors and lawyers that have been there. Even doctors that have worked at that hospital have become patients at that hospital.
Mm.
Uh, so but yeah, as far as my son goes, it really helps me understand what he's going through and how to work with him and get him to cope with a lot of the issues that he's facing by working at the hospital. So I get to see both sides of it. So
Mm, mm. So it's kind of experiential. It's like it helps you kind of broaden your horizons to also dealing and coping with the scenarios revolving around your son.
right, right.
Yeah, interesting. So we can take this a couple directions. Like I know you've been down the story of your son, and I don't know if you want to go down that road again. We could take this back another step and say, like, is this all, for you? Is it just the industry? Is it just the interactions with your son, or have you also had any experiences with, say, neurodivergence, developmental issues that you might, like, what's your personal experiences with it? Does that make sense?
Yeah. No, personally, I haven't had any issues with myself. I mean, I'm the type of person that I'm harder on myself than anybody else could be, and so I hold myself to a higher standard than anybody else would.
Mm,
Um, that being said, though, you're bringing up my son again. Just for anybody to have a little background information, he was in a car wreck when he was 3 years old. He's seven now, but he has frontal and temporal lobe brain damage is where the majority of the brain damage is. He has brain damage all throughout his brain, though. So his short-term memory is gone. Uh, there's a lot of behavioral issues. If he gets mad, for instance, he'll slap his leg, or he's started to develop out of biting his arm. He used to do that a lot. Um, he's gotten to where he stomps his foot if he's mad. Stuff like that. So I've seen the progress that he's made. After the accident, he was a 3-year old infant. He couldn't walk or talk or eat or drink. And so to bring him from that to um, pureed foods and thickened liquids to being able to bounce around and jump around and play like he does currently is a big improvement. He's 7, but his developmental stage is about a 4 to 4.5 year old. So we're dealing with a lot of that as well. And my wife is his personal caregiver. So she deals with him all the time. Where I work full-time job at the psychiatric hospital, so I get him on the afternoons to give her a break. So, but yeah, it's good.
Mm, mm. It's got to be tough, man. But I mean, I know a lot of the background story. I don't want to divulge about a lot about it, but I'd rather you take it those areas so I don't misrepresent you. But what you're doing is what you do is respectable. It is your son, obviously, and there's ties there, but it's got to be also tough and trying at times too. So I can totally understand. Do you have? I don't remember. Do you have other children?
I do. I've got a son that's he's living in Pennsylvania currently. Um, he and I are not as close as I'd like to be, um, but I do talk with him as often as I can, um, which isn't as often as I'd like to, um, because of my job and working here at home with my son here, and then I've got a daughter that's 19. So and she is a typical teenager, 19 going on 40. So yeah, so I have issues there as well.
She's still at home with you guys, like still, around interacting with you and your son, your family, or is she kind of off and
No,
independent
she
now?
yeah, she currently lives about 2 hours away,
Mm,
down in the southern part of the state. But we, just like with normal teenagers, we have our ups and downs as well. So
yeah, of course. Well, to go back to the facility you're working at, like, do you think you could talk about some of the things that are like maybe nuggets of wisdom or anything that you've extracted from working there and the service, things that you've found helpful, revelatory in dealing with your son and maybe dealing with other people in life? Because, we encounter people in real life with mental illnesses all the time. I have tons of my own stories around there. But like what stories, experiences and or nuggets of wisdom have you extracted from working in the facility?
well, first of all, I have to say, and I see it all too often, unfortunately, is that the biggest issue that I've noticed with people dealing with people with mental illness is they define that person by their illness, and that is a huge mistake that a lot of people make. They are people. They're people just like we are. There's they have issues, but we all have issues. Um, and so I guess what helps me build a rapport with the patients a lot faster than most is I don't um, I don't know what a lot of them's mental illness is, and I prefer it that way because when I come across them throughout the day, I see them as just regular people, and so that's the way I talk to them, and that's what helps me build that rapport with them is they when they see me come on the unit, they don't look at me as, oh well, he's judging me. They look at me as I'm just another person like they are, and that's the way he treats me. So that's the way I'm gonna treat him as well.
That you struck a lot of chords with me there. Um, I have my own history with mental illness of myself, not, not necessarily other people. Of course, other people in my life as well. But the judgment, you know, on if so, even if you don't overtly know somebody has some form of neurodivergence or difference with their personality or something, there is a lot of judgment that comes along with that. Me being a person who grew up with neurodivergence and didn't do well in school, I often was attributed with, on the other end of the spectrum, you might say somebody has a mental illness, therefore you're going to judge them. There's also the other end of saying you don't know somebody has a mental illness when in fact they do, and you're judging them without actually knowing. So, like being told I was stupid or lazy or whatever it is for not paying attention, for not doing my work in school, for failing grades, all those kinds of things. So it's that really resonated with me, the judgment based on mental illness. For me, mental illness is kind of on a spectrum, and that's why I have problems calling it mental illness because I am in the belief of everyone should go through professional help to some degree and prove that you don't need it rather than somehow fall through the cracks and start to recognize signs that you do and you've already created a lot of damage. So I'd like to destigmatize personally that thing of mental illness. I mean, we all are in different stages and effects of consciousness and how we interact with the world. And even people who are super smart and brilliant can have divergences in them and how they deal with people in social engagements and how, there's all kinds of varying differences there. So I think the theme of what you were trying to say is we need to destigmatize it so we're not judging people based on mental illness or what we don't know about them. Does that sound right?
Yes, it does because they a lot of people, especially in the facility that I work at, they just want to be treated like people, and so that's the way I've set my mind to do is to develop that working relationship with the patients to where we're just general public, just like anybody else. If I meet them on the street or in the hospital, I'm going to see them the same way, and that's how I develop that rapport and that respect from them. And so they could just take, for instance, a patient just the other day. He hasn't had a visit from his family in 4 years. I see this man every day, 5 days a week, and I go up and I talk to him, and I built that rapport with him, and uh, that friendship with him. And when he found out that his family was coming to visit him, as soon as I walked on the unit, he came up to me so excited. And this is a 62-year-old man, and came up to me so excited to let me know that his family was coming to visit him after 4 years. And and I was so excited for him. And I made sure that during the visitation that I stopped by there and just told him right off the bat, hey, I hope you have a great visit. And at the end of the visit, he told me it was wonderful. So that type of thing that most people take for granted. They 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 relish that, they cherish that time, and that's something a lot of people don't have is that time.
Yeah, it's the human connection aspect. I'd have to assume that having a son as you do and working in the industry gives you a lot of compassion for and a lot of understanding and eye-opening experiences that maybe other people may not have or understand because they're not exposed to it. You know, um, and so the other thing that really stands out for me is like we need those types of attitudes in these services because I still hear about all, the older abuse of history, of course, was a lot worse. It's not quite as bad now. I don't think that's my observation. My other observation is that funding is probably a big issue. Staffing, funding, managing the services. I don't. Is it all? I don't know how that works. Is it all privatized? Is it part government subsidy? Is it how does all that work today? And how do you have? What do you have to say about all that stuff I just asked you?
Well, and used to, and a lot of people have said the horror stories of a state mental facility. Um, there, and I can tell you, unfortunately, those were true. They would uh, give the patients enough medication to where they were just walking zombies, walking around, not even knowing where they were. And that was true at the facility I work at. But since then, they have revamped their system to where they have a treatment team set up for every patient. That includes a psychologist and a sociologist and a medical doctor, LPNs, RNs, behavioral health aides, even the security on the units that they're housed in. They're all part of the treatment teams for the patients to get an individualized treatment plan for these patients to give them the best possible chance of a normal life that otherwise they wouldn't have.
So are all these paid? Do you know? I mean, I don't know how much you know, but are all these patients local to the area, or are these are and is funding an
Uh,
issue? Like, is this the reason why maybe some people might be funneled from around outside areas into certain locations that might have it as a local industry, if you will? How does any of that work?
well, this being a state psychiatric hospital, it's primarily people in the state of Arkansas. Um, and I know that most every state has a state psychiatric hospital. Um, Whether each state operates like the one mine does or not, I'm not sure. But I can only go off of my experiences with the current facility I work at. So, but yeah, to see the changes that these patients are going through and the developments that they have are amazing. Um, I appreciate every step of it because I've seen some of these patients come in and just be out of this world. and to see them actually be an intricate part of their units and of their treatment teams as well, because they have their own input in their treatment team as well. So to see all that, it really gives them the the purpose, uh, for lack of a better way of describing it, to better their selves, to be able to get out on their own and live life to the fullest. So it really, you have to experience it to get the full aspect of it. It's great though.
Interesting. So, um, yeah, my mind went back to One Flew Over a Cuckoo's Nest when we were talking about, the malignancies of the past, and I'm glad to see things are seemingly getting better. Um, Current administration, are there any effects that are either you're suffering already in the industry, or that the place might be suffering, or things that it might be anticipated or possibly might come true and really have a significant impact on the industry?
Well, there's always funding issues, um, to the point where the facility, they have leased certain areas that are unoccupied at the hospital. They've leased those to other departments. Take for instance one area that my dad was real familiar with. Uh, it's a separate building from the main hospital, but they have leased it to the Department of Community Corrections for their trustees. They're actually in construction right now to reconstruct a unit on the hospital grounds for another company that is going to be focused on the drug rehab and a mental facility, basically because of the overuse of drugs. So so they're doing good with what they have, and but it is also they do struggle a lot with the funding of the hospital and trying to make sure that these patients are taken care of.
Kind of like they're adapting to more of a multi-layered approach where they can handle multiple aspects of what might cause someone to fall into needing support, care, help, uh,
Right.
mental
And
services.
and just to throw this out there too, an extra bit of information: the head administration of the hospital, um, which is a great man, a very great man. He started off as a behavioral health aide at that hospital, and went to nursing school, became an LPN and then an RN, and he's worked his way up, and now he is the CEO of the hospital. Um, another person that actually started off as a LPN and worked his way up. He's the COO of the hospital. So they've been on the units with these patients. They've dealt with them with every aspect of their development and their progress, all the way up to the running the whole hospital themselves.
That's awesome stuff, man. Like, in today's political climate, it's nice to hear stories of what sound like good, effective use of resources, and that's having good tangible outcomes for people in need and such. So that's a heartwarming message for people to take in this political climate right now, I think. Um, So, but I guess one of the negative aspects you're calling out here is the funding. That funding is always seemingly an issue. Do you think that's as far as the extent of the negatives of the industry? Or are there anything else that, not trying to take it to a negative note or a sour note, but, I just want to explore the whole entire thing, if you will.
Well, and funding for an area that most people shy away from, like mental illness, is always an issue. So funding is definitely one of the primary issues that they face. The other aspect of it is just the reputation. They've had to fight and claw their way from a reputation of abuse and like I said, just totally over medicating people to the fact that they're just walking around clueless as to even where they're at. Um, to a facility of caring and understanding um, and development for these patients to be able to live the lives that they wouldn't have the opportunity to live otherwise.
Yeah, that those are awesome stories. Yeah, all the classical stories of mental illness is like they look worse than prisons almost. And the things that they used to impart on people like lobotomies and or chemical castration or chemical lobotomies or all those things that are really just like I want to dull your senses so much or physically handicap you so much that we can just lock you away and not worry about you. Um, but yeah,
Yeah, the years of straitjackets and over medication are no longer around anymore.
that's good. Yeah. Well, here at least. I have to imagine
Right.
that's better and worse around the world potentially. So good for us in those senses. Is this an old facility? Has this facility been around? Is there history to the facility that anybody would know of? Or
The original hospital was built back in the 1800s,
wow,
and it totally burnt down
sank
and
into the
then
swamp.
was re
Yeah, no, I'm just kidding.
right and then was rebuilt in the 1900s, early 1900s, and since then part of the old hospital has been bought by UAMS hospital, for their administration and things. But they have, what was it, 2017? I'm wanting to say, if I remember correctly, they built a brand new section of the hospital which houses the majority of the patients. They still occupy part of the older hospital, um, and so it's a two-part hospital. Uh, but yeah, it has its histories, that's for sure.
Mm. Interesting. Yeah, I was referencing Monty Python, where the guy was talking about building his castle in the swamp, and then it sank into the swamp, and then he built another one, and that sank into the swamp, and then he built another one, and that one burned down, and then sank into the swamp. No, but so I have another controversial thing for you. Maybe it's something or not, but you mentioned CEO and COO of the company. I don't know anything about the business structures, but we have a lot of controversy going on in this country about CEOs, and you know, I'm sure you can let your mind wander to that particular relevant topic right now. Um,
Right.
so I don't know. Do
Well,
you think there's concern there? Do you think there's concern in the same ways that those unequal hierarchical sort of structures can cause an imbalance of what we might, So if we look at
Well,
yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry, man.
just to give you a little example about the CEO and the COO of our facility, we have adolescents uh, units there that have mental illnesses, and just want to say 2 months ago, the activities director wanted the adolescents to put together a small play to hold in the gym for certain patients and staff members to enjoy. And in the front row of the audience was both the COO and the CEO of the hospital, and they give full support of anything that the patients want to do to help themselves, to make themselves feel better. Um, any type of artistic talent that they have, they even have their own art area, their own art class where they can paint or draw or even just color with crayons. Um, and then the staff and even other patients, because patients get money sent to them from their families. They can purchase these pictures, and then that money from those paintings goes towards uh, their own patient accounts. So so yeah, they really emphasize on being a part of every aspect of the hospital and the patients' lives. They frequent every unit multiple times a day throughout throughout each week. When they're not in meetings and stuff. So, but yeah, it's great to see the support of even the highest positions there at the hospital with these patients.
Yeah, that is awesome. And I guess that's where I was leading with that is, with all this controversy, I used to be CEO of a company for a while. Like, I don't want to be looked down upon or made disparaged because, I had a label associated with my name. It sounds like they're really invested in the industry and the purpose behind it, and that's really awesome. That's good. That's good stuff to hear. Um, that's inspiring, if you will. You know.
Right.
Um, So yeah, I don't know, Don or Bojangles, you guys got any questions? I don't know how long, if you've been paying attention, following along, or anything. No, I got crickets. We eat crickets here, so should be careful.
Sorry about that. No, I don't have any questions for your guest. I'm rather well acquainted with him.
Just a little, huh? A little bit. So, well, Billy, do you want to take this anywhere else? I mean, I'm sure there's probably lots we could talk about. But I don't know a whole lot about the industry. It's fascinating hearing about it. When I leave here, I want to look it up. And you said there's history associated with it. I'm a history buff, so it'd be interesting to look back and see what kind of interesting stories. Um, did you have anything else you wanted to add
Yeah.
here?
Now the as far as the facility goes, I think I've pretty well covered it all. And so we've talked a lot about my experiences with the facility. Um, going back to my home life, and this is more of a personal note. Even though I do take my employment very personally, But even more of a personal note, my son, um, my experiences at the facility helping me work with and help develop my son is is another uh, part of my treasure, for lack of a better way of saying it, that I hold near and dear. Um, with him uh, dealing with the struggles of even school, that it really helps me out, which in turn helps him out. He's 7, so he doesn't understand really that I'm there helping him. He thinks I'm just making it harder on him.
Mm.
Uh, but um, but I, he and I have a special type of relationship. Um, it's kind of hard to put in words, I guess. The development that he has shown so far is miraculous, to say the least. Um, I watched him go from a normal little boy to basically a an infant at 3 years old, to now he's almost that same little boy again. Um, I the heartbreaking that I feel um, when kids come home from school and you ask them how their day was. Most little boys or girls can tell you, hey, we did some math, or we colored, or we played on the playground, or we learned this in school, or we learned that in school, or we had this for lunch, or whatever. And when when I asked him, no matter how good or how bad his day was, he said he had a great day, and he colored and he played. And that's, even though that sounds wonderful, but that's all he remembers.
Mm.
Because of the brain injury, his short term memory is gone.
Mm.
Um,
So he doesn't really remember a whole lot past like 24 hours sleep cycle thing. Is that what you're getting at, or did I lose you? Hello? Hello?
I
Well,
think maybe he just needs to take a minute
oh, take a minute. Yeah,
and,
sure, absolutely. Yeah.
yeah, gather himself.
With
can you
Discord, I
hear me?
can, yeah, with Discord, you can never tell when you lose somebody through in the middle of a conversation. So,
True.
Oh, I think I was getting a phone call at the same time. That's the reason why it pulled me away from it. But
gotcha.
no, what what I was talking about is just giving a generic example. If I was to give him a Pop Tart right now to eat, he would eat it, enjoy it, everything. And 10 minutes later, I could ask him what he ate, and he couldn't tell
Mm, mm, mm,
me. A lot of things that really impact him, he can remember. So to me, that's telling me that whatever it was important to him. Um, Whether he knows how to express it or not is different. But just like, for instance, uh, my brother came down. Him and my sister-in-law, they came down, and um, not too long ago, and I think Don had mentioned this before we got on air, but he had never seen my sister-in-law face to face in person, and just to kind of give you an idea of his personality, even with the brain trauma. He saw her for the first time, walked up to her, and she said, "I'm your aunt." And he called her by name and said, "I love you."
mm. So some things really do stick, like like you said, some things are really important, and he can reference them, but some things are so fleeting that they're easy to just let go of and then not have a reference for essentially very quickly.
Right. And he's a special person. Um, he doesn't care whether you're male or female. He doesn't care whether you're short or tall, heavy or skinny, black or white. It doesn't bother him at all. Uh, he has an infectious love for everybody,
Mm. We need more of
and
that kind of not caring in the world, let me tell you.
right, and that is my inspiration from him, because if a 7-year old can walk up to a total stranger in a grocery store and want to give them a high five and blow them a kiss before they leave, and not knowing whether they'd ever see them again or not, or first time they've ever seen them, and he puts a smile on their face, and you get a lot of people that will say that's exactly what I needed today.
Mm,
And I try my best to live that way, and I wish more people would try to live that way as well.
mm.
It would sure make this world a lot better place to be.
Oh yeah, I think that's what I was kind of getting at with we need more of that not caring kind of thing, that not caring if we're black and white, male or female, whatever, just addressing people as people and with caring and openness, vulnerability. Yeah, we absolutely need more of that. Um, that's wonderful. That's beautiful. So let me let Kyle up here. Um, yeah, it makes me think of a lot of things, like the fact that we have people who are very functional in society, but yet so damaging and so horrible and perpetuate just horrible things, fear mongering, wrong information. A lot of times it's for self interest, so it really breaks down, to me at least, what's important. When you can look at an example like that and see, your son is doing more good than so many people who have the ability to do much more good than they do, you know,
Right.
that's pretty amazing stuff. So thank you for sharing that, Billy. You're a tough guy, and you really love your son, and that's fantastic. And you're strong and all those things. I really appreciate you for sharing all this with us. Um, Kyle, any questions? You just popped in here.
What did I miss?
Oh, you've missed a lot. We've run around the circles with starting off in just struggling with psychological, mental type issues to Billy working in the industry and he's got a son who has some, but I guess because of some brain trauma early on, has some developmental issues. And we went down how the institution has changed over history, and yeah, the old horror stories were very much true, and it's gotten a billion times better. And granted, funding seems to be an issue everywhere. I don't know anybody who really probably doesn't struggle with funding issues in some way, shape, or form. But the people who are involved, the company, it seems to be really doing a lot of good these days and helping people find their legs and finding meaning and function in life rather than just drugging them or putting them through procedures and locking them away and throwing away the key into how just simple acts of love and innocent kindness and everything can have such an impact on people's lives. Um,
Hmm.
so we've been round and round. It's been a really good discussion, honestly.
I have a question. I understand, Billy, that this has been quite a many years that you've been in this field, and my question to you is, have you experienced a patient maybe leaving care and then coming back some years later, um, just to say thank you, hi, to check in, and you've seen a significant growth and um, newfound happiness? Are there any victory stories that you have?
Yeah, there are. There's one in particular that really stands out to me. I worked with a patient that was an adolescent in the hospital, and he when he turned 18, he moved up to the adult units, and initially he struggled quite a bit because he was kind of the new kid on the unit, the youngest one. But he didn't didn't take any criticism or anything to heart. He worked his way through the program, worked with his treatment team. Went he ended up going to a less restrictive facility. Um, then um, I had left the hospital by then, but when I came back in 2018, um, he actually came up to visit a lot of the people that were there when he was in the hospital. And fortunately for me, I was back working there at that time, and so I actually saw him at the front of the hospital in the front lobby, and he was a manager of a auto parts store in town, and he just wanted to get with everybody that still worked there, that was a part of his development, and really helped him with the struggles and worked with him and helped him cope through all issues, whether it was mental illness or even his own family that didn't really want to have anything to do with him because of his mental illness. And so he said that we treated him more like family than his own family did, and the enjoyment and the excitement I had to see him was amazing.
I love that. That's absolutely beautiful.
Yeah, I mean, Billy's telling
If
me all kinds of good stories today. I don't know if that's fair. I want to hear some bad stuff. I want to hear some dip. I'm just kidding.
Oh, spilling the tea. You want to spill the tea? I see.
No, that's great stuff. Did you have anything else, Kyle?
No, I just find it super impactful um, because not only did he take the time to come back and show his appreciation and the thoughtfulness he expressed, such care and uh, gratefulness within the staff, and he simultaneously was injecting hope, love, and compassion into the space that a lot of them so desperately need. I mean, we all need. And so thank you for sharing that. That's it for now.
Anything you want to say back, Billy?
Yeah, just my biggest thing, and I mentioned it earlier, and it's a struggle of who you are, or where you're at. You don't even have to be at a facility. Just the judgment, whether intentional or unintentional, the judgment is what, or lack of judgment, I guess I should say, is what helps develop these patients the most. Um, the care and support that these patients have, um, even from people that they're not related to or have never seen before then, it's a huge impact in their lives, whether you see it or not. Um, I don't treat these patients any differently than I would anybody else, and I definitely don't treat them that way for recognition, because it's not for me; it's for them.
And it didn't cost any money either. The time, the understanding, the space to be just themselves and be accepted and be nurtured did cost a dime.
Yeah, being nice and considerate is free.
It is a choice.
Yeah, that you'd think so, but some people don't feel that way. Like I see this message out here often that I think Elon Musk was one of them who said empathy is weakness. I'm sorry, I just don't align with that notion. I find it strength. It is free, but it can be also trying and hard. But I just want to acknowledge that. Um, Along the lines of what Kyle said about people coming there, needing services, being able to leave, and then maybe coming back and sharing experiences. Do you know anything about? Because I know you said something about the criminality aspects. Like sometimes people who are, criminally offensive also come there. Is there any like can you speak to anything about recidivism for like does it help to have that buffer as opposed to just throwing them in jail? Is there any do you know of any evidence of reducing any recidivism or anything of that nature?
Um, yeah, there's a lot of positives that can come from it. They're they're not confined to a jail setting. They're really you have to excuse me a little bit. My dogs are going crazy because my wife just got home, but they are they're not treated like a criminal uh, at that facility, even though they do have criminal charges pending. They're treated just like anybody else, and so it really helps with their treatment and their development to better their lives. I mean, that's the easiest way I can explain it.
All right. Well, look, it sounds like your family's home. I want to let you go. I don't want to drag you out too long. We've been on for a while now, too. Anybody else have any other questions for Billy? Crickets? Billy, is there anything else you want to say before we sign off, or is there anything else you wanted to cover before we sign off?
No, I think that was about it.
Well, it was a good conversation today. I'm sure I'll go
Thank you,
back and
Billy.
yeah, thank you so much. And thank you, Don and
Thank
Kyle,
you,
for
Brian.
being here. Appreciate it.
Thank you for having me on.
And